The Wild have punched their ticket into the Stanley Cup playoffs after beating the San Jose Sharks 5-4 in overtime. We recap the busy week for the Minnesota Wild, what needs to happen now that a playoff spot has been clinched, and we look ahead to yet another busy week, shocker, on today's episode of Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we recap a couple of close losses to playoff rivals and division rivals. We take a look at an exciting win against Dallas, a close loss to St. Louis, and a bounce back against San Jose. We'll also look into some areas that need improvement heading into the playoffs and some general ideas for Dean Evason to try to get some of his better players a little breather between now and the end of the year. And we look ahead to another busy week with some winnable games, but some tough ones as well. Today's episode of Locked on Wild brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked on Wilds, your captain, veteran captain of the show, the people's host of the People's Show. And glad to be joined by our Monday co-host, Alex Micheletti, for a Victory Micheletti Monday. And the clincher, Minnesota Wild have gotten themselves a ticket into the playoffs. And so after everything that happened in the offseason with not being sure what this team was going to do, Minnesota Wild have 100 points. They have a playoff spot. And so despite some recent results, all is good in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the dance. That's all you can ask for. The ninth time out of the past 10 years. So, I mean, yeah, they're consistent. You know, they're giving themselves a chance at a cup. So that's all you can really ask for fan base is to get in the playoffs, and then you just never know what can happen. And so, you know, good for them. You know, they needed 1 point. They got the two, and they did it in an exciting fashion with Spurgeon getting the game winner off just a brilliant move by Kevin Fiala towards the net. And then he just, Spurgeon said he didn't even move his stick. It just kind of hit it and went in. So fitting the captain gets it and, gets 2 goals on the night. So good for Jared Spurgeon.
I was hoping Kevin Fiala would get it because of how hard I've been driving the Fiala bus.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much all of the Minnesota Wild podcast landscape has been driving the Kevin Fiala needs to be here long-term bus, and just a monster performance. There are so many different ways to go with this, but I think the one, and I tweeted this out, and I think you had a similar angle. First and foremost, we got a really good look in this game against the Sharks as to why it's important to have 2 dynamic scoring lines, because you have not only arguably one of the worst games of the season for the Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Hartman line, but on the other end of the coin, you have maybe one of the best games of the Fiala, Gaudreau, Boldy line. And so the Wild were able to overcome that top line not having a great night, but at the end of the day as well, those guys all know that they did not play well, and they answered up to it after the game. And so an off night for Kaprizov and Zuccarello and Hartman, but a great night for Fiala, Boldy, and Gaudreau.
Yeah, I've been so impressed by Matt Boldy in his two-way play. He just Yeah, every night he's showing up both ways, offensively and defensively, and he made a great play to on the Kulikov goal to cause that turnover, and Fiala makes the great dish to Kulikov up top, and he just blasts one past Reimer. That line was going all night. Fiala had 4 points, Boldy 2, Gaudreau 2. So that it's so important to have that second scoring line, because we saw it against Vegas last year where they shut down Kaprizov, and there was really no second line to help scoring wise. So I would expect the Blues to try to do the exact same thing that Vegas did, and frustrate Kaprizov, get under his skin with the big defensemen that they have. And so it's going to be important for Matt Boldy and Kevin Fiala to drive some offense, and especially on special teams too, to try to take advantage of the Blues, because they are so good 5-on-5. So yeah, it's gonna be one hell of a series for St. Louis.
Yeah, it's gonna be incredible. And Russo tweeted it out. It's essentially it's like a 99.99999 because as of right now, St. Louis has 102 points. The Wild have 101. Dallas would need to run the table to get to 105 points. Nashville would need to run the table to get to 103. So highly unlikely that even if they do that, that both the Wild and the Blues lose out. And so it's going to be Wild Blues. We'll have, of course, some extensive crossovers with the Locked On Blues podcast to preview the series, every angle that you can possibly think of, including Marc-Andre Fleury's pads. Alex, the last handful of games, you had the 3-2 win against Dallas, which was a roller coaster, but thought that would be hopefully kind of a springboard to the end of the season for the Wild with how they played. Big win on the road. Started off poorly against St. Louis, and you thought, nope, no chance. There's no way this was going to be any sort of a rally point. And then in the blink of an eye, it's a tie game going into overtime. And then the results today with just not looking great against San Jose. I think part of the problem with these results is that we're getting down to the end of the season and everybody is just gassed at this point. And you're pulling any energy that you can possibly muster every single game just to get through it. And so there are going to be some ups and downs at the end of the regular season, but the main thing is that the Wilds are keeping it competitive against the good teams and are finding ways to beat the teams that they should, even though the style points aren't necessarily there.
Yeah, there's a lot of desperate hockey going on with a lot of teams. A lot of teams are still trying to fight, to stay in it. We'll see another team later this week, Vancouver, that's desperately trying to get in. Might be a little bit too late, but even some of these bad teams are trying to make games of it, and so they're gonna have to stay with it, even though they've clinched a spot. There's home ice that's still up for grabs. And that's going to be huge, especially against St. Louis. It would be so nice to get home ice. The Wild have been so dominant at XL. They've won at an 80% clip at home. And so that's very impressive. And so, yeah, keep doing what they're doing. They've, Every time you think this team is out of it, they find a way. That's a good hashtag, find a way, because this team, you take a look at last Sunday with the LA game, and being down 3-0, they could have just called it quits, but Marc-Andre Fleury stayed with it. He stayed with it tonight too. He let up a couple clunkers, and he found a way. He found a way to get that win. That's what a 3-time Stanley Cup champ does. He finds ways to win, and rallies with the team. So I was impressed. What more can you say about a guy like Jared Spurgeon too? He's on a roll. Offensively, just being a leader, that quiet leader that we talk about. He might not be the most vocal guy in the world, but He holds guys accountable and
Yep.
is a calming influence on this team for sure.
If Kevin Fiala is priority one in the
Mhm.
offseason, his line mates, Jared Spurgeon's line mate, that is, Jacob Middleton, needs to be number two. How about, and you hit it right on the head,
Mhm.
play of the game, that breakaway, and Middleton is able to disrupt it enough to prevent the Sharks from what would probably have been a goal. But he does stuff like that all the time. And it's not only that, it's the size, which is why we brought him here.
Mhm.
It's the physicality, but he is a savvy, smart defenseman too, and is a guy that looks like somebody who is on the cusp of becoming a very good defenseman in this league.
Yeah, he's the prototypical playoff defenseman that you want on your team. He's physical. He's rough. He's smart. He's the perfect. He's exactly what St. Louis has, a bunch of those same type of guys.
Yep.
And so they picked up Micheletti, who's big, fast defenseman, and so. And the Wild get theirs, and Micheletti would have been great back home too. But Middleton, and it's so fitting that he is the guy that gets clinches essentially the playoff point that the Wild needed against Timo Meier, who for how bad San Jose is, Timo Meier is one of the best finishers in the game. He's
Yep.
had an incredible season on a terrible team, and so the play he made, and he could have whacked them to give them a penalty shot, and Timo's pretty good in those shootout types of situations, and so he's so smart with his stick, and he pairs well with a guy like Jared Spurgeon, and Spurgeon can be a little bit more offensive. He's always been known as an offensive defenseman, but he can be like a la, how it was in San Jose when he was D partners with Erik Karlsson, and Erik Karlsson doesn't play a whole lot of defense. He's all offense. And yeah, that didn't do well for San Jose. Continues, that contract has been a nightmare.
Oof.
And so, but yeah, Kevin Fiala, Jacob Middleton, 1-2. They have to be on this team next season for the Wild to continue that postseason run that they've been on.
Yeah, no objection here. I'm
Mhm.
right on that same wavelength. So, all in all, Wild did enough to get the win, just as they have all season. Not trying to fill all the boxes with style points and like, hey, we should dominate this team, and we didn't. Get the win.
Mhm.
Wild got the win. They clinched the playoff spot, and now we can focus on some of the bigger issues at hand, such as whatever is going on the power play and the penalty kill. I think we have hit critical mass with both. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. Plus, we'll talk about to rest, to not rest. These are the things that you can discuss once you've clinched the playoffs, is what do you do the rest of the season? We'll get to the answer of that question when we return here on Locked on Wild. Our next partner is a product I use every single day. I started taking AG1 because in my attempts to be a little more organized in the morning, I was finding it difficult to get all of my vitamins and supplements organized before I headed out the door for work. AG1 is one scoop. All you need is one scoop, and you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. AG1 is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits. It is one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. And if you're looking for some great reviews, Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews. And right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every single day. That's it. That's all you need. No need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild, again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Once your first listen of the day is done, make sure you head over to the Locked On Sports Minnesota channel and check out the Ron Johnson Show. Locked On Sports Minnesota is an exciting new twist on all of your favorite Minnesota sports shows, so make sure to check it out, free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. Continuing to recap and move forward, the Wild clinched their playoff spot. So now what? Now what should the Wild do? What will they do for the remainder of the season to get themselves ready for the first round of the playoffs? Alex, it's got to start on the power play and the penalty kill, because at this point, there have been a lot of bad performances with both. Penalty kill did not allow a goal, but this might have been the worst power play performance of the season for the Wild. 0 for 5, gave up a shorthanded goal, and had, I think, one shot on those 5 power plays. It's a disaster at this point in the season. There's really no concept of what to do. They can't get into the zone. They don't shoot the puck nearly enough, and the line combinations have just been a mess. I don't know what you do short of just starting from square one with both.
Yeah, it's we talk about it in the playoffs. Scoring goes down, and you have to finish on special teams. It's critical because the games get tighter. The whistles, the refs tend to put the whistles away for a lot of the times because they don't want to be the story. And so when you get the power play in the playoff game, you have to finish, especially on the road. If St. Louis gets home ice, they're going to have to win there to win the series, and they're going to have to score some special teams goals. That's how they're going to win games there for sure. And we saw in the St. Louis game, the penalty kill was an absolute disaster. Guys were out of position, just some soft goals by Talbot too, and so. Yeah, I tweeted it, today too. I would love to see Connor Dewar in the playoff lineup. I've been kind of underwhelmed by Brandon Duhaime, and so I think they could easily swap in and out, or same thing with him and Bukestad. I would like to see Delorier in there just because of his physicality and to protect guys out there, but. Yeah, I think he would be great on the try to help out this penalty kill and maybe give him an audition here down the stretch now that you're officially in the playoffs, like we talked about. And so maybe giving him a guy like him a chance. Power play, Matt Boldy's got to be on that top one. He's a creative force, and he's been showing it. And so, yeah, like you said, just go back to the drawing board and try everything. It makes no. I don't really understand on the power play, but
yeah,
I guess they want to keep him on there. But yeah,
I have an idea.
Yeah,
I have an idea. I don't know if it would work, but at this point, it can't be any worse than what they're doing. Hear me out on this.
Yeah,
Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Boldy, Fiala, and a defenseman on your top power play.
Yeah. I would put Dumba on there, but if
you can have, you can put whoever you want defensively.
Yeah.
Matt Boldy can take the faceoffs theoretically. Hell, Kirill Kaprizov could probably take the faceoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to find some level of just some semblance of an idea of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the idea of trying to simulate that you are just playing 5-on-5 with your starting offensive line, your starting defensive line. But that's been worse. that's been worse than what they were doing. And I can't understand why, as we've hit on, why they're so good with the empty net and why they're so bad with the power play. I don't get it. And then the penalty kill, it's like everybody's just playing so passively. They're sucked in front of the net. Like you have to start that over from scratch too. Like just start them both over from scratch. You'll have plenty of opportunity over these last 7 games to try some new things, because I think what should also happen is, as long as the Wild are close to St. Louis, if St. Louis continues to win, to rattle off wins, and it gets to a point where you can't catch them for the number 2 spot, rest your key players when the opportunity presents itself. I'm not saying like take the entire last 7 games off, but if Marcus Foligno is clearly hurting, you can rest him against Arizona and still win the game.
Yeah, I would, especially, maybe some of the top line guys too. Zuccarello's getting up there in age. Let him rest a little bit too, right? Alex Goligoski, get him some rest if he's going to be if he's going to be in the lineup. Get that brother some rest. That pairing, the Jordy Ben Goligoski pairing. I don't know why it continues to be thrown out there. It's a nightmare. That third goal, no one was covering anybody.
No.
It was a nightmare. And the fact that Goligoski had the plus minus that he has, is he Houdini out there? Is he is he tricking the NHL scoring?
He must be holding back, and then like as
bookending it to the bench before the puck goes in.
Yeah, he's like hopping onto the bench as the goal's getting scored,
just throwing his body over the bench.
Because like, what did he do today? And I know the record. I think the record is like 34, and he's at like plus 45. And guess what he did today? He was a 0 today.
Incredible.
Even though that pairing was single-handedly responsible for that third goal, he ended up being a 0.
They could have cost the game. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So anyway, fix. I can already tell this is going to be where the thumbnail comes from today's episode. Fix the penalty kill, fix the power play, and if you have an opportunity to rest some banged up guys,
do it.
All right, that's where we'll leave it. I'm going to try to dive in further to try to fix those messes, but the Wild do have games yet to play. Another busy week, including a team that the Wild should throttle no matter who is on the ice. It could be the Iowa Wild. We'll talk about the rest of the week when we finish today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all of your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, including league reviews and news, as well as this year's NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, and the final push to the Stanley Cup playoffs. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Kentucky Derby coming up in a couple of weeks. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can find that and more at BetOnline, where the game starts. The month of April brings us nicer weather, which means it may be time for you to start looking at eating a little better as well. And if you are looking for the perfect treats that you can take on the go, Built Bar would like to say hello. If you haven't tried their Puffs yet, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy and marshmallowy, as you would expect. They're not just a protein bar, but they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. As with other Built Bars, Puffs contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You can compare that to your standard candy bar with right around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So if you want to bounce into the Built Bar Mania, head to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. I have not put it together yet, but I will tease that we do have some exciting things coming up for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Got to get there first. Now that we're in, there are still some games to be decided between now and then, such as the start of the week. Old friend Rem Pitlick and the red hot Montreal Canadiens. You can look back. So they lost 5 in a row. They are 1-6 in their last 7. They are 2-9 in their last 11 games. They are 3-11 in their last 14, and so on and so forth. Montreal's not doing great, but can't just walk into this type of a game and expect to come away with a win. That went well in Ottawa the last time that happened. But an opportunity for the Wild to maybe take out a little of their frustration over these past few games with a definitely winnable game to start the week.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it. We saw it last night with Calgary. They destroyed Arizona 9-1. So that would be 6 goals in one period. It would be nice, just like St. Louis tonight. They just beat the cover off of Nashville. So it would be really nice for the Wild to have a game like that on Tuesday.
Thanks for nothing, Predators.
Yeah, I mean, come on, help us with the home ice. Come on, Nashville. But Montreal, they do have the short king and Cole Caulfield, who's on a heck of a run here late. I'm glad to see him back in the NHL where he belongs, and in Martin St. Louis. I would have never thought he'd be coaching an NHL team, and there he is. And they just got Carey Price back, so it'll be interesting to see if Carey Price starts or not. Good to see him back. After 100%. Everything that he's been through. He was an absolute warrior to get them to the Stanley Cup final last season. They went through some personal stuff and knee injury, and so good to see guys back. We'll always root for that, even if they're the opposing teams. Yeah, it's a team that they should take care of business, and you can't take lightly. Like I mentioned, those 2 guys, and so hopefully they bring it and. They just get the week off. If they can get the week started off on a good note, that brings good vibes for the rest of the week for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Because after that, then the Wild get to say hello to another old friend. That being, of course, Mr. Bruce Boudreau, as Vancouver comes to town. Now, the Canucks, despite their best efforts, are probably not going to make the playoffs. I mean, there's always a percentage chance that a team could slide in, but where they're currently at, they're 5th in the Pacific, 37, 28, and 10. They'd pretty much have to run the table to even have a chance, I believe. But nonetheless, Bruce Boudreau has that team playing substantially better than they did at the beginning of the year. JT Miller, so many other players that are dangerous. So another opportunity here where if the Wild don't handle business, this one could develop into an L as well.
Yeah, we saw when they were here, a couple weeks ago, and they played at home. And, Thatcher Demko's a really good goaltender. And it's a Vancouver team that, they're another team that doesn't really give up. And, you mentioned JT Miller, but, they have guys like Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson, who is criminally underrated, and he can finish. So, yeah, it's a team that even if they're out of it, they're gonna give it their all. They're not in Arizona, they're not in Anaheim, and Bruce wants to be a coach in this league, and so he's not going to give up either. And so it's a game that'll be a hard-earned 2 points if they are to win that one.
100%. Then after that, the Wild have maybe the hottest team in the NHL. Oh wait, no, they don't play Arizona for a couple of games. The Seattle Kraken, who come in, they're 24, 44, and 6. They actually had a game postponed, but it was due to that blizzard that moved through the northern part of the country into Canada. But nonetheless, the Kraken continue to kind of struggle. It seems like they take a step forward, then a couple of steps back. And the Wild had some good success before the Kraken officially hit this slide part of the season. So, again, another game that the Wild should take care of business. But that should be a fun atmosphere because it'll be the first time the Kraken come here after we have played all those games out on the road.
Yeah, quick shout out, congrats to Matty Beniers getting his first NHL goal with the Kraken. These guys are, they step into their first couple games and no fear, and then they score right away. I mean, shout out to Ben Myers too, getting his first goal on his first shot with the Avs. Of course, he steps them into that lineup and just immediately score. I think they rack up 7 goals against Carolina like it's nothing.
Ugh.
One of the best teams in the East, and they get Freddie Anderson hurt out there, so just incredible. But Seattle, that's another team that they should handle. They thought that Philip Grubauer and Chris Dredger were the answer, and that was not the case. Talk about a team that they could have had Vladdy Tarasenko. I tweeted it, and they wanted nothing to do with him. and St. Louis was going to give it to him, and they took Vince Dunn instead. But it's just I don't know what Ron Francis was thinking, unless they really wanted to be in tank mode. It made no sense. You can't compare it to Vegas with the expansion. Vegas had a lot more better players available, but there were some good players available that Seattle refused to take, and so things could have gone a little bit better for them than what's playing out right now.
Like Capo Kakinen, it is interesting that you had Tarasenko and Fiala both coming into this season who are like, are they gonna stick around? And they both have just.
Tarasenko asked for a trade too. He wanted to be off this St. Louis team. Just think about that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Thank God Kevin didn't ask for a trade.
No kidding. Yeah.
Final game of the week is another big one, and it is a team that I cannot be happy enough to see the final game that we play against them this season, hopefully. The Nashville Predators, again on Sunday, on the road. Can we stop? Or can we just win this one?
Yeah, I mean, that is the team that the Wild want nothing to do with. Roman Josi is a Wild killer. I mean, that guy is a stone-cold killer on the ice. And what he's doing as a defenseman is just unbelievable. Insane. Matt Duchene bounced back year. Everybody thought he was done. And he's close might be a 40 goal scorer. He's getting there. It's incredible. And another guy that wants to be off is Philip Forsberg. They haven't figured out a contract extension for that sniper, and old friend Mikael Granlund and Luke Kunin. And so it's a team that's just like the Blues. They're big and heavy. They have a good goaltender in Saros. He had a tough night tonight, but they were also on a back-to-back, and they decided to play him again. I don't know why. That made no sense. They have no faith in David Rittich. I don't either, but at least play the guy to give some, Saros some rest. But he's definitely a better goaltender than he showed tonight. That happens.
Yeah, and I saw a stat on Twitter. The last however many times a goalie has started on 0 days rest, cumulatively, combining all of those 0-day rest efforts for a goalie together, save percentage is 88%.
Yeah, it's just too tough in this day and age with goalies. sometimes you can cheat a little bit when you're playing like in Arizona on a back-to-back, and
Right.
and then just get the win just based on the opponent being so bad. But most of this league, if you get a goalie to play both and on the back end, that you're in for a long night. Your goalie's probably going to give up 4 or 5, and you just got to hope your offense can match it.
Yeah, and that's why the Wild have been rotating Talbot and Fleury, is so that they don't run into a situation where somebody gets overworked down the stretch. And if one or the other separates themselves performance-wise down the stretch, that'll be your starter going into the postseason. I would imagine it still will be Fleury, but it wouldn't shock me at all if we see both Fleury and Talbot.
Yeah, they're both getting up there in age. Fleury's 37, Talbot's 34. So these guys aren't in their 20s. You'd probably, I would think, just with his playoff pedigree, that you would go with Fleury to start off with game 1.
Yep.
And if he wins, you can't take him. I don't think you take him out. Especially if it's going to be on the road, most likely. And he wins in St. Louis. Are you kidding me? He's going to be in there for game 2. You have to. And we saw how good he was against the Wild, in the playoffs last year.
Yep.
That's a guy. I want a guy that's won 3 cups. He knows what it takes to get his team to a Stanley Cup final, and he won the freaking Vezina last year.
Yeah, it's a perfect luxury. Let's just assume the Wilds end up as the 3. St. Louis is the 2. You start Fleury on the road in game 1. If Fleury plays well in both games, great. If he steals you game 1, doesn't play so well in game 2, you got Cam Talbot, who is world beater at home, that can start at the X. I think it's going to end up being a combo that works out, and that's why Bill Guerin made the move. So
the trade worked out well, and it gave chip on the shoulder for Cam, and Cam's been great down the stretch too. We can't say he hasn't been a great great goaltender down the stretch here.
Right, and this team, 13-1-3, I think, in their last 13-1-2, somewhere in there over their last 16 games. So they're continuing to be in the leader. And final thought that I have before we wrap up, I remember at some point early in the season, Mikael Granlund was on pace for 100 points. He has 55. He has 10 goals, 45 assists. You know who is doing way better than that? Kevin Fiala, 29 goals, 44 assists, 73 points to move into the top 5 in Minnesota Wild history in a single season himself, to join Matt Zuccarello and Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Matt Boldy changed his entire career.
Matt Boldy probably ensured that Kevin Fiala is going to stay here long term by himself.
It's incredible how that happened, and we might have not even seen Matt Boldy if there wasn't those injuries right at the Winter Classic.
Right.
So it's just incredible. And, it's incredible that he stayed and Marco Rossi stayed in Iowa. It just, butterfly effects all over the place. So, just wait until they're full go probably next year with Marco on the team when they need some cheaper contracts.
Yeah, that's gonna be quite the tandem that you can have is Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Boldy, Fiala. Put Rossi centering one of those groups, and we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. A great way to end the weekend with the Wild clinching a playoff spot. And we're just getting started with plenty more to come here throughout the next couple of weeks. So make sure that you are following along with Locked On Wild so that you don't miss out on any of the content hitting you, any podcast platform you listen, any social media platform you take in. We're there as well. So make sure that you're following along. Hit subscribe on YouTube so that you don't miss out on any of the updates on all things Minnesota Wild. Now that your first listen of the day is done, head over to the Locked On NHL podcast to get the full recap of everything that happened over the weekend with all of your favorite NHL teams from your favorite Locked On NHL insiders. We are keeping you as up to date as we possibly can on all things Minnesota Wild. So make sure that you follow along with us every Monday through Friday with new episodes out as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.